EU leaders in Brussels are as corrupt as their counterparts in Washington, D.C. The EU leaders are put in place especially by their bosses from their leaders to make money through bribes. The Morocco Gate unveiling corruption in the heart of Brussels. In the halls of power in Brussels, where the fate of a continent is purportedly decided, a sinister undercurrent flows beneath the veneer of diplomacy and governance. Recent revelations have shed light on a scandal of monumental proportions, one that rivals the most egregious examples of corruption seen across the globe. Dubbed the Morocco Gate, this sordid affair exposes a web of deceit, bribery, and self-serving manipulation that implicates EU leaders in actions reminiscent of their counterparts in Washington, D.C. At the center of this storm is a pervasive culture of corruption that has infiltrated the highest echelons of European Union governance. Far from serving the interests of the European populace, these leaders are allegedly beholden to shadowy figures pulling the strings behind closed doors. Whispers of backroom deals and under-the-table arrangements have long circulated in Brussels, but the Morocco Gate scandal has brought these suspicions into stark relief. It is alleged that EU leaders, handpicked by their patrons in the corridors of power, are complicit in schemes designed to line their pockets at the expense of European taxpayers. The mechanism of this corruption is multifaceted, ranging from kickbacks and bribes to the exploitation of expense accounts funded by the very citizens they are meant to serve. The lavish lifestyles enjoyed by these representatives stand in stark contrast to the economic realities faced by many across the continent. Calls for accountability have grown louder in the wake of these revelations, with demands to dissolve and fire all representatives implicated in the Morocco Gate scandal. The notion of incarcerating these individuals in the Sahara Desert as a form of poetic justice underscores the depth of public outrage at the brazen disregard for ethical conduct displayed by those entrusted with power. However, the path to justice is fraught with obstacles as entrenched interests seek to obfuscate and deflect attention from their misdeeds. But amidst the murkiness of corruption, there are glimmers of hope. Civil society organizations and investigative journalists have tirelessly worked to expose the truth behind the Morocco Gate scandal, shining a light into the darkest corners of EU governance. Transparency and accountability must prevail if the European project is to retain any semblance of legitimacy in the eyes of its citizens. As the clamor for justice grows louder, the fate of those implicated in the Morocco Gate scandal hangs in the balance. Will they be held to account for their actions, or will they continue to evade justice under the cloak of impunity? The answer to this question will not only shape the future of EU governance but also serve as a litmus test for the integrity of democratic institutions in an increasingly interconnected world. Is the EU held as a hostage by Morocco with the control of the flow of migrants via Spain? While there is no concrete evidence to suggest that the European Union (EU) is held hostage by Morocco in controlling the flow of migrants via Spain, the notion of such leverage being wielded by Morocco cannot be entirely dismissed, especially in light of the Morocco Gate scandal. The Morocco Gate scandal, as previously outlined, has unveiled a web of corruption and unethical behavior among EU leaders, implicating them in schemes aimed at personal gain rather than serving the interests of European citizens. In this context, the possibility of external actors exerting influence over EU policies, including migration, cannot be overlooked. Morocco occupies a strategically significant position as a gateway between Africa and Europe, particularly with regards to migration routes. The flow of migrants from North Africa, including Morocco, into Europe has been a pressing issue for EU policymakers for years. In this geopolitical landscape, Morocco's cooperation in managing migration flows is indeed valuable to the EU. However, the extent to which Morocco may leverage this cooperation as a bargaining chip in dealings with the EU remains speculative. It's conceivable that the Moroccan government could exploit its position to extract concessions or favorable agreements from EU leadership, especially if EU officials are embroiled in corruption scandals, as suggested by the Morocco Gate revelations. Moreover, reports and allegations of irregularities in EU-Morocco relations have surfaced in the past. These include accusations of the EU turning a blind eye to human rights abuses in exchange for cooperation on migration issues. While these allegations have not been definitively proven, they underscore the complexities and potential vulnerabilities inherent in EU-Morocco relations. Ultimately, while there is no conclusive evidence to support the claim that the EU is held as a hostage by Morocco in controlling migrant flows via Spain, the Morocco Gate scandal serves as a stark reminder of the need for transparency, accountability, and ethical conduct in international relations. The specter of external influence and manipulation looms large in the corridors of power, necessitating vigilant scrutiny and a commitment to upholding the principles of democracy and justice. In addition, the intelligence exchange between Morocco and the EU concerning terrorism and the fishing rights in the Moroccan maritime area. Indeed, beyond migration management, the relationship between Morocco and the EU encompasses various facets, including intelligence sharing on counterterrorism efforts and fishing rights in Moroccan maritime waters. Morocco has been regarded as a key ally in counterterrorism efforts, particularly in the context of combating extremism and terrorist threats originating from North Africa and the Sahel region. The country's strategic location, along with its robust security apparatus, makes it an invaluable partner for the EU in intelligence exchange and cooperation. Information sharing between Moroccan and European intelligence agencies has been vital in thwarting terrorist plots and disrupting extremist networks operating across borders. Additionally, the issue of fishing rights in Moroccan maritime waters has long been a point of contention between Morocco and the EU. The rich fishing grounds off the coast of Morocco are a valuable resource for European fishing fleets, and access to these waters is a significant economic and political issue for EU member states, particularly Spain. Negotiations over fishing agreements between Morocco and the EU have been complex, with both sides seeking to safeguard their respective interests while ensuring sustainable management of marine resources. These dual dimensions of cooperation, counterterrorism intelligence sharing and fishing rights negotiations, underscore the multifaceted nature of the relationship between Morocco and the EU. While the two parties collaborate on security matters and economic interests, tensions and disagreements persist, highlighting the delicate balance of power and priorities in their interactions. Against the backdrop of the Morocco Gate scandal, questions may arise regarding the extent to which corruption or unethical behavior may influence negotiations and agreements between Morocco and the EU in these areas. Transparency and integrity must remain paramount to ensure that cooperation between the two parties is conducted in the best interests of their respective populations, free from the shadow of impropriety or undue influence. Ultimately, the intelligence exchange on counterterrorism and negotiations over fishing rights represent important components of the broader Morocco-EU relationship, reflecting both the opportunities for collaboration and the challenges inherent in navigating geopolitical interests and dynamics in the region.